It obviously made pretty big news when Michigan moved on from Sherrone Moore, given circumstances in Ann Arbor. Michigan had been rumored with a bunch of other names, right? Kalen DeBoer was up there. Jeff Brom was up there. Our guy Jed Fish was up there. You name it.
Yeah.
All the big names were at least asked. Kenny Dillingham, another one, got his extension at Arizona State.
I think Todd Monken had a conversation reportedly, with Michigan.
Heard all sorts of names, but in the end, they go for the recently retired, now out of retirement, Kyle Whittingham.
Hold on. Let me push back a little. He never used that word. He never used the retirement word.
Well, he retired from Utah.
The terminology
back from Utah
is the terminology that was used, and I think it was very carefully used, was stepping down. He never used the word retire. So I just want to be clear.
Well,
he
he's
announced
not
that he was stepping
retired, so
down.
it doesn't matter. But
correct.
He stepped
there is
down
a difference.
From Utah, where he had been in some capacity since 1994. He's been the head coach now since 2005. 177-88, his career record as coach of the Utes. He has never coached east of the great state of Utah,
Beehive State.
Was very much on the market after stepping back from Michigan. As you said, did give that carefully worded statement, thought it was time to step back at Utah, turn it over to his predecessor, but he was out there. Kyle Whittingham was a name, obviously early on in the search, garnered some interest. Could he be interested in that Michigan job? I know his name kind of waxed and waned a little bit. Would he be interested? Would that be a fit? They make it official. It is, in fact, going to be Kyle Whittingham taking over at Michigan. I really like Kyle Whittingham. I'm curious to ask you if you like the Kyle Whittingham hire, because I think they are almost two separate questions. Where are you at? I know you made the video from the boat, which was awesome and did well.
Thank you. It took maybe 3 hours to upload, given the speeds available to me. But yes, that was about a 75-second video on my phone. Took quite some time to get to you, but we got there.
I think we both like Whittingham, the guy. And I could definitely talk about the pros of bringing that guy to Ann Arbor given circumstances. But let's talk about the hire.
Yeah. Was he a guest on the show? Has he been on this show?
I don't remember. Mendenhall was on the show. I don't think Whittingham was on
Maybe
the show.
That's the connection. Okay. So my initial reaction was, I guess good for them. Something like that. Those are the words that rattled through my pea brain when I saw that. It was... I think the circumstance, if you go back to the start of what you were talking about, seems to be, given some reporting, given some conversations I've heard, to whatever extent they're true, what has sort of come up time and time again was he wanted to retire legitimately the past couple years. He had been through a lot, given the tragedies with players on his roster, which were just horrible in Salt Lake City, that he had been there for a long time, that he had taken this team from obviously the Mountain West to the Pac-12 and now the Big 12. It's just a lot of changes, a lot of wear and tear, and you just don't see that many coaches stay at one place for that long. Obviously was incredibly successful right when he took over that program from Urban Meyer. So good, by the way, sidebar, good for Michigan for turning to tried and true Urban Meyer tree. That's kind of funny in its own way. And it seemed like he was not going to step down, but he was going to retire, that he had been through it, and that he had indicated in some fashion to those behind the scenes that he was ready to retire these past couple years. And then sort of had a change of heart and decided he wanted to keep coaching. And the word is, again, I don't have a confirmation from within the Utah Athletic Department that he said he wanted to keep going and sign a new deal with Utah. They have their coach in waiting in his defensive coordinator, Morgan Scalley, who's been very, very good for a long time at Utah. At least as an on-field coach. And they had this weird situation where they wanted to move on to the future, though had to respect everything he had accomplished there, and said, why don't you just coach 2026 and we'll make that transition. And he wanted more time. He re-energized to whatever extent and gave a statement, in fact, talking about I don't want to overstay my welcome and I just want to leave before that happens. And so you could use this jigsaw puzzle, use the pieces to piece together what was sort of happening, especially with what all the word has been behind the scenes.
Right.
He steps down. Michigan's in this terrible situation where they're going after guys. They're not going after guys, but it's reported they're going after guys. It's late in the process, and there just isn't that sort of interest from the names that they are rumored to be chasing in the way that they'd like. Reed, Kalen DeBoer.
No.
And obviously Alabama wins its opening round matchup, and the word was Michigan was hoping that they wouldn't win because they're banking on Alabama being sort of sour on him and not offering him a big deal after losing an opening round game in the college football playoff. And they win the game. He's happy in Alabama. He talks about how happy he is. He's not entertaining anything, whatever. They move on. They interview guys, or they talk to agents, whatever the process is, and they land with Kyle Whittingham kind of falling into their lap.
No.
My thought on Kyle Whittingham is he's legitimately an excellent coach. Now, the question then becomes, is he an excellent coach for this specific place, which you mentioned has not left that state in quite some time, and recruited that state in Idaho and California and that sort of part of the country, not in a national way or a heavily regional way that Michigan recruits, and that they had a ton of success with under Jim Harbaugh and recruited very well with Sherrone Moore going into places like Texas and stuff like that. So the question then becomes, what is Kyle Whittingham's ceiling? What is Kyle Whittingham's floor? How long will he be there given his age at 66, and he signed a 5-year deal with Michigan? Do I have that correct? For about $8.5 million per?
Correct.
Somewhere in that range?
Yep.
He was great at Utah because they played really good football. They developed really well, especially along the lines. He got better as a recruiter as time went on, especially along those lines. You know, guys like Jalen Johnson and Clark Phillips were huge successes in the secondary. They recruited tight end and developed tight end pretty well to really well in some cases. Recently, we had Dalton Kincaid and Brant Keefe. Guys like that were great, and mentioned the linemen already. But now it's, can he recruit to Michigan in the way that Jim Harbaugh did and develop and win when you now are looking down a schedule of, take your pick, Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, like schools like legitimately USC, right? USC just demolished them this year. He hires BYU's defensive coordinator, reportedly, and Jay Hill, who's good, maybe not excellent, but I mean, to have a really strong defense at BYU is an impressive thing. BYU is in the Big 12 championship game.
I like Jay Hill a lot, actually.
The BYU linebackers, especially this year, were otherworldly.
I like Jay Hill.
And I think the word is Jason Beck, but nothing official, bringing an offensive coordinator to Michigan. So the question is, again, what's that ceiling? What does Bryce Underwood think of the hire? They've met. He's started meeting with players. Guys like Andrew Marsh, who look like they are long-term potential game changers, all conference type players. You know, what the guys on defense coming in, or younger players on defense, what does the portal look like when, Whittingham has a chance to speak with his players and sell them on his vision for Michigan? And how close can they get to where they were 2-3 years ago when Kyle Whittingham is not known as that killer roster builder, because Utah didn't win those conferences, right? They got close, I think, 1 or 2 years. Oh, no, sorry. They did win the Pac-12, right? They beat USC in a Pac-12 championship game, and got to the Rose Bowl and lost to Penn State, if I have my years correct. But was never a playoff presence at Utah.
Yeah, I mean, so look, a couple things
sorry. I just have a lot of Kyle Whittingham thoughts. He's very impressive.
No, I mean, look, all things considered, Michigan could have done a lot worse.
Definitely.
It was really late in the game. It was awkward. It was never going to be good. I mean, from a PR standpoint, it's been horrible for Michigan.
Yes.
And so I think to go out and get a guy like this, he's just available on the open market. It fits. It fits really well. He does like to play a physical brand of football, which is going to be, I think, largely compatible with what Michigan's been building.
Agree.
So that part works. The other part that works really well is that Michigan needed an adult. They needed a grown-up to come in and stabilize things. And Kyle Whittingham is that. I saw somebody put out on social media, he's been on Instagram 11 years, has never posted once. Thankfully, follows 5 women, most of whom are related to him, all of whom appeared clothed in their photos. Yes. I hate to make that joke, but that's where we're at with Michigan, okay?
Totally.
So on the heels of what has been a very tumultuous run now, if only in the PR department on the Michigan side.
By the way, not just Sherrone Moore. It's also the ongoing Matt Weiss thing. Yeah.
There's a lot going on with that program. Harbaugh was very successful, but there has been some controversy that has followed. So they needed this guy right now to come in and to stabilize the ship, be an adult.
Yeah.
He will do that almost immediately. The con that I see is that, as you mentioned, 66 years old. All right. Doesn't mean he can't be there forever.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, looks like he could play linebacker.
I was going to say, sidebar.
Yeah.
We should all be so lucky to look like Kyle Whittingham at 66.
Right.
Yeah.
If his defensive lines are as strong as his hairline, he's great. He'll be great for a long time at Michigan.
Yes.
I like the guy a lot. I always have. His Utah teams were solid, but they rarely overachieved.
I think solid is underselling it. When Utah was healthy, when they had a healthy quarterback, when they had Cam Rising for 14 years, Travis Wilson for 14 years, this was a legitimately very good program.
I just always was left wanting more from his Utah squads, which is why I say rarely overachieved, and that's a relative scale as well, and I'm just speaking personally.
Yeah.
But that part for me feels like that's going to be a real question that I think is legitimate. What's the staff look like beyond if it is Jay Hill, if it is Jason Beck? I haven't seen confirmation on either for what it's worth, but I've been under the weather here for the last week.
That seems to be the expectation.
Seems to be the expectation. But if that's the way that they go, I think that would be a nice boost. The roster, you brought this up in the video that you recorded, but you mentioned Bryce Underwood. I would also throw Jordan Marshall in there.
Definitely.
You mentioned Andrew Marsh. I would throw Cole Sullivan in there, the linebacker. Right? My
Couple good young
expectation
tight ends. Yeah.
My expectation is that he'll have no trouble keeping running backs and linemen. And certainly defensively, there's a bit of a track record there, a proven track record for developing those guys and putting a good unit out on the field. But quarterback, wide receiver, what does the development look like on that front? And are those guys, notably Bryce Underwood, Andrew Marsh, guys like that, are they spooked by whatever they have seen from Kyle Whittingham's previous tenure at Utah? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Certainly there would be a market for those guys if they decide to throw their name in the portal.
Yeah.
So I like it on some levels. On others, I remain a bit skeptical to see whether or not it's going to work longer term. But I think all things considered, again, if you're Michigan, like much like it was at Penn State, it got late early to have Matt Campbell, to have Kyle Whittingham essentially fall off the back of a truck into your open arms. That's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah.
So I would grade the high. I don't know what I would grade the higher. B+ if you're Michigan, A-. Of all available options, I think they got a guy that can step in and at least provide much of what they need right from the get-go. So kudos to them.
And I would say, by the way, we're talking about comparing what Michigan might be able to do under Kyle Whittingham when you weigh them against, obviously Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, the best of what they can accumulate in terms of talent and roster depth. We're also living in a portal era. We're also living in a time where Michigan is one of a handful of schools nationally where players grow up just wanting to go there no matter who the coach is, right? That it's a sell itself type of school and was reinforced under Jim Harbaugh. No matter all of the recent turmoil, there are still kids across the Midwest, across the country with connections. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh did a great job, going through the South and going to Texas, stuff like that, to really raise the Michigan flag more than it had been previously. But in the portal era, if he's able to maintain that, the obvious concern once the players are there is that he was never able to figure out an offense that could develop a legit killer at quarterback with a downfield passing attack that would scare teams. And that's exactly where Michigan fans have been these past couple of years. Where is that guy? Is Bryce Underwood that guy? Is Chip Lindsey that coordinator? Are these receivers? Can we find a guy in this receiver? And never happened at Utah. That they found, obviously Jason Beck this year did a good job with Utah on the ground, but it just never happened no matter who the quarterback was. And I don't know if that was by design, but if you're looking at something that Utah was not able to accomplish, they were never really able to figure out that level of aggression. And Michigan won without it. They won the national championship without it. But in order to have that pitch, I don't know that my first call would be Kyle Whittingham. But for all the reasons we mentioned otherwise, it seems like they're going to be in a really good place. My gut, given the circumstance, given what the Big Ten looks like, is, and this was my initial gut thing, was if they could get to the point where they look like the best of Paul Chryst at Wisconsin, right? Running the ball, killer defense in the Big Ten, could beat legitimately anyone until maybe the Big Ten championship game when they couldn't quite match up against teams like Ohio State. If they can get there in the next couple years,
I mean, that's kind of what they've been, isn't it?
What Michigan's been?
Is it not?
Well, they were
the brand of football they've been playing.
They were a better version of what Paul Chryst was. I'm saying if they can get to like the best of like late teens Wisconsin.
Well, fair enough. But this is why I say that it's at least compatible on some level.
Definitely compatible.
Right, because Whittingham will want to play that style of football. I mean, we talk about it often. We've talked about it, I feel like, a multitude of times here now through the coaching carousel where a coach didn't work out because they came in. I mean, we're dealing with it right now with Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, where at least initially tried to play a brand of football that didn't seem compatible with what Wisconsin had been. Granted, that's not everything, but I think in this case it fits, at least with the roster that they've got in hand. We'll see if he can retain it. We'll see what the staff does look like. There are, some reported names out there, but once some of that stuff becomes a little bit more finalized, we can revisit and give you an update on our sense for where things are at. But again, I'll resort back to my line. All things considered, this is a very, very good hire from Michigan.
I think so too. I think so too. It's not looked at as a dozen-year hire.
No.
But I don't think those exist anyway, so it doesn't matter. If he can get Michigan, back to solid ground in the next year or two, he pays for itself.